Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions, the mystery of the tomb of Genghis Khan, the most searched-for grave in history. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. In 1227, Genghis Khan died during a campaign in northwestern China. His body was carried secretly to Mongolia. According to legend, 2,000 soldiers were killed after the funeral to keep the location secret, and the returning army killed everyone they met on the road. The grave was trampled by 10,000 horses. It has never been found. Genghis Khan conquered more territory than any military leader in history, an empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea, assembled in less than 30 years. He died at the height of his power, and his body was hidden with a thoroughness that has defeated 7 centuries of searching. The Mongol tradition of secret burial was designed to prevent enemies from desecrating the graves of the dead. In Genghis Khan's case, it worked perfectly. His grave almost certainly contains artifacts of extraordinary historical and monetary value. It also carries, for the Mongolian people, a spiritual significance that makes its discovery a matter of cultural urgency and cultural dread. Where is the man who remade the world buried? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the global puzzle of unexplained ancient construction, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Archaeology is, by its nature, an incomplete science. We find only what survives, and what survives is determined not by importance, but by durability. Stone lasts, wood rots, metal corrodes, ceramics endure. The written word survives only if it is inscribed on stone or baked clay. Papyrus and vellum are hostages to humidity and fire. This means that every picture of the past, assembled from archaeological evidence, is a distortion, biased toward the materials that happen to last, rather than the activities that define the culture. With that cave in place, the structures that do survive from the ancient world are sometimes inexplicable by any conventional model of the societies that built them. We find stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons, fitted together with tolerances measured in millimeters, transported from quarries dozens of kilometers away, and raised to heights that challenge modern cranes. We find astronomical alignments so precise that they track the movements of specific stars over periods of thousands of years. We find architectural proportions that embed mathematical ratios, pi, phi, the Pythagorean theorem, in civilizations that supposedly had no formal mathematics. The challenge these structures pose is not engineering alone. It is conceptual. How did people without our tools conceive of projects on this scale? How did they solve the organizational problems of feeding and coordinating tens of thousands of workers over decades? How did they transmit technical knowledge across generations without standardized notation? The buildings stand as proof that they did it. The question of how remains genuinely open. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns, in science, demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the tomb of Genghis Khan, the most searched-for grave in history, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. Genghis Khan died on August 18, 1227, at approximately 65 years of age, during a campaign against the Tangut Kingdom of Xia in what is now northwestern China. The cause of death is disputed. Contemporaneous and near-contemporaneous sources variously attribute it to a fall from a horse during a hunting expedition, a wound sustained in battle, typhoid fever, or a disease contracted from a Tangut captive. No autopsy was performed and no body exists to examine. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered Mongol burial tradition required that the graves of rulers be kept secret, both to protect the spirit of the deceased from interference and to prevent enemies from desecrating the body. This tradition was applied to Genghis Khan with unusual rigor. Marco Polo, writing in the late 13th century, recorded the practice of killing bystanders along the funeral route to prevent witnesses from revealing the grave's location, though scholars debate the reliability of this specific account. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the Ik-Korig. The Great Taboo was a sacred restricted area in the Khentai province of northeastern Mongolia that was closed to all but the Mongol royal clan for approximately 800 years after Genghis Khan's death. Entry was forbidden on pain of death. The area encompasses the region around Burkhan Khaldun Mountain, the sacred mountain where Genghis Khan was born and which he identified as spiritually central to his life. This restricted zone is the primary candidate region for the burial. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the secret history of the Mongols, written in 1240, 13 years after Genghis Khan's death, is the primary Mongolian source for his life. It records that he asked to be buried at Burkhan Khaldun, the sacred mountain in the Khentai region. This is the strongest textual evidence for the burial location, though it gives no more precise coordinates than the mountain and its surrounding landscape. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the Mongolian government has consistently opposed excavation of potential burial sites on cultural and religious grounds. For many Mongolians, the question of Genghis Khan's burial site is not an archaeological puzzle, but a spiritual matter. Disturbing the grave of the founding figure of the Mongolian nation is considered a form of desecration, regardless of the academic or historical value of what might be found. This cultural position has constrained all non-invasive surveys as well. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding: an accidental discovery in the 1990s of what is believed to be Genghis Khan's palace at Avraga in eastern Mongolia provided archaeological confirmation that Mongolian imperial sites from the period do exist and can be located. The Avraga Palace was identified through surface survey and excavation. It appears to have been a ritual center visited by later Mongol rulers to honor their ancestor. Its location adds geographic context to the search for the burial site. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the tomb of Genghis Khan, the most searched-for grave in history. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that Burkhan Khaldun Mountain in Khentai Province, northeastern Mongolia, is the location supported by the secret history of the Mongols and by Genghis Khan's own documented reverence for the site. This is the most archaeologically credible candidate, endorsed by the majority of scholars who have studied the question. The main objection is practical. The Khentai region is vast, forested, and largely inaccessible, and the Mongolian government has restricted survey activity. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that a Mongolian legend holds that Genghis Khan was buried in the bed of a diverted river, that his followers dammed a stream, buried him in the exposed riverbed, and then released the waters to flow over the grave permanently, hiding it beneath a river that has flowed undisturbed for 8 centuries. This method, also attributed to Tamerlane in some accounts, would make the grave archaeologically inaccessible without knowing the specific river and the precise location of the diversion. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that a minority of scholars and researchers have proposed burial sites in Inner Mongolia, now part of China, near the region where Genghis Khan died. The Ordos region has been put forward on the grounds that the body may have been interred near the place of death, rather than transported the long distance back to Mongolia. Chinese authorities have permitted limited survey in the area, but no confirmed evidence has been found. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the tomb of Genghis Khan, the most searched-for grave in history, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Albert Euman Lin's 2012 National Geographic Society project. The Valley of the Khan survey used satellite imagery and crowdsourced human analysis to examine a large area of the Kentii region. The project identified approximately 55 candidate sites showing anomalies consistent with subsurface disturbance. Ground-penetrating radar was subsequently deployed at the most promising locations. No burial chamber was confirmed, but the methodology established that non-invasive survey of the region is technically feasible. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the secret history of the Mongols as the earliest surviving Mongolian text has been the most authoritative guide to the burial region. Its statement that Genghis Khan wished to be buried at Burkhan has been consistent across manuscript traditions. Persian and Chinese sources from the 13th and 14th centuries corroborate the general tradition of secret Mongol royal burial without adding geographic specificity. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the Mongolian government's own cultural heritage surveys have identified a number of sites in the Kentii region with features consistent with Mongol-era construction, including earthwork enclosures and disturbed ground patterns. None has been confirmed as the burial site. The restriction on excavation means that even confirmed anomalies cannot be investigated below surface level. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the tomb of Genghis Khan, the most searched-for grave in history. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. Albert Lin's Valley of the Khans project identified 55 candidate sites using satellite imagery and crowdsourced analysis, but no excavation has followed. The Mongolian government and population remain strongly opposed to any disturbance of the burial, viewing it as a matter of national and spiritual sovereignty. Non-invasive ground-penetrating radar surveys continue in a limited capacity. The tomb, if intact, is expected to contain weapons, armor, and artifacts of the Mongol imperial court, potentially the most valuable undiscovered burial in human history. It remains unfound, and for many Mongolians, that is exactly as it should be. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis. And the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Tomb of Genghis Khan, the most searched-for grave in history, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Genghis Khan ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.